Thank you very much. And I would like to thank the organizers and particularly Costa Papanikolas for inviting me and encouraging me to stop my trip in order to be with you. Not because I'm an expert in decarbonization or in CSPs, but because I think that I may add some arguments in favor of CSPs. The whole, let's say, approach in my intervention is that CSP is becoming really attractive only if it is viewed within the Nexus approach. So in a systemic way, bringing in the issues of water, of agriculture, and food production, and ecosystems. And because not everybody is familiar with this rather new term, Nexus, actually the word Nexus comes from Indo-European. Gnot was the first root. Gnot is becoming not knots, but also in Greek is, and it means also junction. The Greek word gnathos, junction, comes from the same root. And in fact, these two also help us to understand the two aspects of Nexus. The one is something complex that sometimes is so difficult to solve, and Alexander the Great just cut it. We cannot do the same. And the other is junction, a positive thing. So it is the epitome of integration and facilitates first the understanding of interrelationships of water, energy, food, and ecosystems, and the way in which we have to draft policies and interventions in these sectors in order to have long-term solutions and also protect biodiversity at the end of the day. I'm in my way from a long trip that started in Sharm el-Sheikh some 10 days ago, where we had the International Convention of Biodiversity meeting. And this is the first time that the Biodiversity Convention, the Climate Convention, and the Desertification Convention, all the three known as the Rio Conventions, because they go back to 1992, started working together. And it was demonstrated that the solutions addressing the climate change issue are the same solutions to support biodiversity and reduce the desertification. So we have to seriously consider also the shift of interest with targets, the same as we have for climate, for the other conventions, and the role that the sources, renewable and non-fossil fuel solutions, decarbonization solutions, may contribute towards this direction. And there are billions that are going to be invested towards this direction. So my view is exactly to stress on that. And the Nexus was started in 2011 with the Germans and the European Commission having the three only components. So food, because energy and water, the interrelationship is so clear and direct. You cannot have water treatment. You cannot have, even in countries that you don't need the desalination, but even more there. For pumping, for cleaning, for transferring, for using, you need energy. The same way energy depends on water, not only for cooling or hydropower, but for a number of issues that you know better than me. And also, don't forget that in most parts of the world, and particularly in the Middle East, for food production, we have up to 85% of water and a considerable part of energy. So yesterday we've heard an excellent presentation of the energy policy of Cyprus. And today we'll hear more about energy policies of the countries. What about the food supply policies or agricultural policies, many of which are based not only on the need to feed people, but also on the need to keep people in their lands. So there are social policies linked with that. And from the moment they decide, let's say, to increase agricultural production, the whole system is shifted, and then you have to see quite different scenario for energy and for water. So it is very important to take into account that it is very, very crucial to see from the very beginning of design the interconnections. And I don't need to elaborate more, but this issue is becoming extremely more complex and difficult because of the climate change, when you put in the equation also the climate change. So I think that here I would like to say a few more things about the ecosystems, because the ecosystems until now, in many cases, were considered a luxury, and they were not put in the equation. However, both water scarcity and overpumping of water, and energy production, but also the impacts of energy through particularly the greenhouse gases and the links with carbon at the end of the day, have affected the ecosystems a lot and biodiversity a lot. And this is not a luxury. I can tell you that the biodiversity loss is really shocking. When we started in 1972 with the first Stockholm Convention, from that time on the environment, at that time we had 60% more species of mammals, of reptiles, of birds and fishes, of these four classes of organisms. We are poorer by 60% since 1972. So it is, we've heard yesterday something very important you said about at the end of the day, a company and a country should try to provide to its customers energy at low price, or at the best price. I challenge this as a scope of a government. The scope of a government is actually, perhaps by allowing to have a little bit more in paying, to maintain the country, to maintain the welfare, well-being of the country and of the people. And actually, in this equation, we have to bring in many more parameters. I know that what I'm saying, it sounds a little bit like, you know, from another world, but it is not. It is where we are forced to move very fast. And those who understand that actually will have the future. Those who don't and resist in all approaches will have more problems. We have already many problems. So this is how, because we have, through food, we have all expansion. I'm not talking about Cyprus, cutting forests in order to provide more land, using agrochemicals in huge quantities. All these have a serious impact on the quality of the water and also on the quantity. And at the same time, you know that we don't try hard in reducing the demand. And going to food, for example, the loss we have, the wastage of food in our part of the world, even in the Mediterranean, reaches something like 40%. If we include the United States, where big parts are not harvested at all because of the prices of commodities, this situation is even more difficult to understand. So we are talking about trying to make decisions based on common sense and coherence. And this is why we have included the ecosystems. And I have made this small sketch, because here is the Nexus as a system of tensions, where each one uses, for example, water, for the other sectors using energy or promoting energy or promoting food. At the end of the day, all of them damage the ecosystems. In order to keep this nexus in place in a balanced way, a higher level of coherence and cooperation and coordination is necessary. And with the silo way in which governments at the moment operate, is very difficult. We are not against keeping silos, but silos need to be connected. There is a logic with the silos, but at the same time, it is absolutely necessary to create channels among them. And from this system of tensions, we want to move into a system of convergence. And I make it even more clear here. We need to create within this tetrahedron. We chemists are, fond of tetrahedron. Is the most stable structure we know on Earth, in our system, globe actually, and what we need is, within this space, policies on water should take into account policies for food, energy, and ecosystems. Policies on energy should take into account the other three. And as I said from the beginning, this, in my point of view, is the best selling point for for the long term. So I think from this point of view, it is extremely important also, even if you don't, somebody does not understand the importance of the issue, it is a good selling entry point. And I think we need to understand also this. The elasticity of the four different components is different. For example, for water resources, food, and traditional energy production, fossil fuel, we have limited elasticity. It is linked with the particular place where we have the resources. On the other hand, for the use of this, we have elasticity. Even, I mean, when you don't have in a country with desert or whatever, you have to import food, you import virtual water, but you solve the problems. The only system of the three that has no elasticity are the ecosystems. We cannot store them as we do with water. We cannot transfer them. And so this is why we have the 60% loss. And we cannot afford more of that because the nature-based solutions are, we work on that more and more, are the most cost-effective and the ones that require less investment for infrastructure. They are infrastructures themselves. So it is very important from the beginning to keep this in mind. Also, we know that, for example, we need to work with less demand of energy vis-a-vis the different resources. For example, to treat wastewater is a small percentage of the energy we need for seawater. And so obviously it's clear from where we have to start. And again, these huge demands need to be somehow linked with decarbonized sources of energy. And again, CSP is coming here as a preferable solution. This is hydropower, which is not for this part, but is also important to see the links, particularly in the Adriatic area, in the Balkans, but also to see issues that we have with the big aquifer in northwest Sahara, and this is fossil water. It is not renewable, but still used already, and we need, and in both cases, I put this because these are transboundary issues where we have huge problems in sharing water. So we have to move into sharing the benefits of water. And in some cases, like with hydropower, sharing energy and water resources, sharing Nexus, protecting also the ecosystems, provide a bigger space for negotiation and agreement. So it's very important to keep also this parameter in the equation. And this is where we are. These are not models. These are results. And we see that in the red areas are where we had in the last years the most dry winters. You can see here that in the period from 70 to 2010, the red bars here, these are winters with less precipitation, are more frequent, and this, I repeat, these are not models, these are results. And similar results we have here, where we see the droughts that we had in this area are the most severe after 900 years, almost a millennium. So we are not talking about something that will come. We are talking about something that we have. And we have to put all our discussions about the development of an energy cluster or within this context. And this context is going beyond even that, is linked with movement of people. And look here, this is the Nile Delta, and the red parts are less than 1 meter from the sea level. Already today, with the Renaissance dam in Ethiopia, if they start, more than 60–65% of this is already completed. If they not find a solution about filling the dam, we'll have a famine in this area, and the climate change impacts. Imagine that they have more than 10 million people there. Where these people will move? So this is something that we have to take into account when we decide about choices. And the Nexus is something that is not a theory. It is out of the necessity to address these issues. We have this, for example, we have moved, at the moment we have risks in some countries and some systems. We have a larger increase. You see, we are now around 2020. We need to avoid definitely the irreversible changes throughout. But we are not actually sure if we can avoid the phase 3, which is the irreversible at regional level. Thank you. This is the cost of in billions of dollars of extraordinary events, and this is up to 11 now. There are even more. I have to speed up. Something that is important is that Nexus goes beyond the physical availability, and this is because of the very complex interactions between natural and socioeconomic systems. Demands addressing variability and risk should also focus on the needs of individuals. We have to keep into account that the behaviors, but also the reactions to the pressures come from individuals, should also urgently shift to decarbonization of energy sources. This is one of the heart principles of the Nexus, that we need to move away from carbon. Should meet environmental ecosystem needs, so the ecosystem-based approach in many countries, and in Europe this is a prerequisite and a demand, and also a legal demand, and also to require the integrated water resources management and addressing the conflict among sectors. I get through that very quickly. Efficiency and productivity of resources, more sustainable consumption and production patterns, synergies and improving governance across the different sectors, and enhance integrated water resources management applications, move fast to decarbonization of energy. Of course, the emphasis is that it is not one solution for every country. It has to be tailor-made. So what we expect out of that is higher water security and protection of food security, protection of inland and coastal and marine habitats, climate change resilience, and at the same time create substantial economic benefits and new jobs. Two things here. Reducing the conditions and pressures of root causes and enhancing at the same time the resilience. What are the means for that? The three. The technological solutions on which this conference focuses, the institutional solutions, and education information. If we have developed in my group, we don't talk about the three pillars of sustainable development because sustainable development is included in the tetrahedron with society, economy, environment. Within this, we have the Nexus. And what is the actually the basis of that for the solution is governance. And the three clusters of institutions, technology, and awareness are the tools through which we promote the sustainable development, also the Nexus approaches. Examples: financial and other incentives, green taxes, levies, indication on products, water and material footprint, designation of protected areas. All these are in the part of institutions and regulation. The clean technologies, I don't take more time. We are discussing that. And awareness raising and education is particularly, it was also raised yesterday. These are some of the regional initiatives at the moment on this area. The UFM Water Agenda, the WEG, the Working Expert Group on Nexus, the GIZ Nexus Regional Dialogues, supported by EC and Germany, the GWP Med Nexus in Southeastern Europe project from ADA and Germany and Jeff, the GWP Matchmaker project for North Sahara, the Nexus Child Program of UNEP MAP of the Mediterranean Action Plan of the United Nations Environment Program, the Swim Horizon 2020 that I have the honor to be the team leader, and many more. Also from NGOs, several programs. Here are some main types of interventions: building background for policy interventions, identification of priorities in the entire government, provide tools for introducing and operationalizing Nexus approaches, coordination, I see, and design and implementing interventions for replication. We need hard and soft infrastructures. The hard infrastructures, some of which we are discussing here, the same we have with non-conventional water resources. On the other, we need also to have investment. All these are types of investments that are within the Nexus envelope. I will end with the soft ones. We need also for robust institutions and education. And I finish again with this. This provides appropriate, I think, space for win-win solutions, provided that we can overcome also the silos approaches. I apologize for taking a few more minutes. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much to Professor Scoullos for giving us additional arguments. And I think in the previous days, a lot of speakers already deal with at least with the CO2 dimensions, but we think that the system is much more complex, and we appreciate very much your insights in this respect. And perhaps if there are some questions to Professor Scoullos, one or two questions, quick questions, we can just take it or take them.
If I can, one?
Yeah.
How can we imagine to, let's say, specialize or use in a practical way a systemic approach in evaluating technologies. Because I think that it's very difficult for us, for human beings, to think in a systemic view, so we need tools. And we have been developing quite a lot the LCA approach, so now we calculate everything about the life cycle of a technology, but this approach is quite more challenging, so we need to develop systemic tools.
You'll not be surprised that the only way is intradisciplinary assessment. Interdisciplinarity, not multidisciplinarity, where everybody comes with his own ideas, but intradisciplinarity, where you know what you can expect from the others. And this is something on which we don't have enough practice at the moment. And we need to move into that. We have a lot of progress in this area in the last very few years, 5 years. But it is one of the important issues. But the Nexus does not require that you always look into new technologies. You can use also existing and mature technologies and approaches that have been proven. So we have to not get into the trap that in order to get the right decisions, we wait for the new tools. The existing tools, when played in a wise way, could provide a lot of solution.